Welcome back. I'm Kim Bailey. She's Fulyana Osborne, and this is Inside Exec. This is the third part of our conversation with Aaron Dozier about exercise physiology. And today we're going to talk about developing a healthy sleep hygiene routine. And also we hear the secret behind the 10,000 steps a day metric that many of us use. So let's get started.
So the other thing in talking about that routine of your day and how movement oriented you are.
Yep.
And I know that this is an issue for many of our listeners. It's about the stopping and the winding down and getting that good sleep. So is there a process that you use for getting yourself into a sleep routine, I guess?
Definitely. Yeah. So we call this sleep hygiene. Have you ever heard about that term before?
No.
Yeah. So that's how we refer to it, as sleep hygiene, or trying to, be as clean as you can with that sleep process. So absolutely. I think one of the things that people should begin to consider when they do this is setting a very routine sleep time and wake time. So generally, the way we go about this with people is we have them turn off all their alarms on some weekends and sleep for as long as they can. And then we figure out, okay, this is roughly around where your body likes to be. And then we almost reverse engineer it. So, okay, on the work days, you need to be up at 6:15. So where do we need to reverse that bedtime to for you to get that adequate amount of sleep? So that way we can start to set that consistent schedule. Circadian rhythms are very powerful and very influential. So that's kind of your natural kind of up and down of when you feel like you want to go to sleep and you want to wake up and that kind of thing. So we want to tap into that as much as we can and figure out that ideal range. Once we figure out that ideal range with a consistent sleep time and awake time, then we begin to start that wind down routine before bed. So generally no screens for 30 minutes, dim the lights as much as you can. If you can get a little activity in, like reading a book or something like that, which kind of helps the mental process slow down a little bit, they're all very important. I think setting up your room correctly, making sure it's dark and cool so you have the best sleeping environment you can for that. And then, if you can have some routines. For some people, it's breath work. Some people, it's meditation. Some people, it's reading. But a little something to do for about 20, 30 minutes before you do tuck in to kind of let that brain unwind and calm down is a very good idea. And then there's a few other things. We try to discourage people from eating very close to bedtime. That generally throws it off a little bit if you're digesting food. I don't like my athletes to work out in the evenings if possible. Sometimes it can't be helped because that's just the way their schedule is. But if we can get them working out early in the day, the body has a little bit easier time falling asleep. It's very hard if you go in the gym and go all rah, rah, and turn the music up and get a big workout in, and then you lay down to go to sleep 30 minutes later. It's kind of like, ooh.
I will sleep now.
They're a little bit at opposite ends of each other there. So, and then we look into other things, obviously caffeine sensitivity. I don't drink any caffeine after lunchtime just because I know that it messes with my sleep a little bit there. I try to front load my hydration. So I try to get in about 80% of my water before 3 p.m. So that way you're obviously not having to get up and use the bathroom frequently throughout the night. So little things like that. But generally the first step really is finding that consistent sleep time that's based around how many hours you need. And then finding a little routine before that to help you wind down a little bit. Once you get those two things really in place, we can begin to tinker a little bit with some other nuance around it from there. So, but a lot of people aren't getting quite enough sleep. It's a really big one.
Just in terms of the reading, because I know that's something that the listeners will probably latch onto and say, oh yeah, well I can do that. I can do the reading. A couple of things around that. Are we talking recreational reading, not business reading? And do we do it on paper or from a book rather than an electronic device that's backlit?
Absolutely. They are really good questions. Yes, ideally a paper book because you're trying to avoid any artificial light if you can around that time. So you definitely don't want to be staring at a Kindle screen or your phone screen. A lot of them do have some little blue light blockers these days, which kind of help. But ideally, yes, it'd be a paperback novel that is something that you're just going to relax into and read recreational. I don't think profit for loss statements or emails or any no, that's not going to count as light reading before bed. You want something that's going to help the mind switch off a little bit too. Some people have the little headbands that have little head speakers built into them. And you can just listen to a little bit of something that's relaxing. There's a whole host of podcasts that are sleepy stories and things like that, or rain sounds, or just something like that to help you unwind and switch off a little bit. So, no emails from the accountant before bed.
Yeah, a lot of our listeners work for big corporates, and
Yep.
the biggest problem is that all the different time zones, and they
Yeah.
have the phone or iPad or whatever close by, and they hear that ding and
Yep.
immediate reaction. So, as you said, turn all alarms off, including your emails.
Yes, all notifications. Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
You definitely want to try to get away from that as much as you can, because it is very stimulating. And we're kind of very wired to that stimulation and that response. And the
Yeah.
dopamine response of the phone signal and the screen, all that is quite powerful. So you definitely need a little bit of time away from that to allow the brain to wind down. So I've used different strategies. I've had some chronic scrollers that wake up in the night and have to check emails and go through that. So for them, the phone needs to go in another room.
Yeah.
They kind of leave that out of the room for the time being, on charge somewhere else or out of the way, and different little bits and
Yeah.
things like that. I had one that just could not stop looking at Facebook at 3 a.m. for some reason. She was just totally addicted to getting on and
Yes.
scrolling. So we made her delete the app every night and then reinstall it every morning. So
Oh, that's a good idea.
yeah, I was like, when you get to dinner time, you need to delete Facebook and Instagram and everything, and then you can reinstall them after breakfast in the morning. Because she'd wake up and just start immediately scrolling too. I was like,
Yeah.
that's just not quite a healthy practice. So yeah, we had her delete them all and reinstall them, and she's sleeping way better now. Much
Oh,
better.
good.
So,
Good.
yeah.
Excellent.
Right.
But yeah, technology is a big one. Technology is a
Yes.
big one. And the only other thing I'd add to that is, if you can in the mornings, get a little bit of natural sunlight. That
Yeah.
is a really good way to start to set that circadian rhythm. Your body starts to adjust a little bit. So avoiding the unnatural light at night and then getting natural light in the morning helps us kind of orientate ourselves. It's very good for melatonin production and things like that as well.
The work from home practice,
Mhm.
certainly with the office people, it has lots of pluses and some not so plus.
Yep.
They're not walking as much because they're in the house. They're not going out in sunlight because, they maximize their time. Some are
Mhm.
quite smart about it and they think, well, I go for a run, and they do. But it's good to keep that top of mind and saying, yes, sunlight exposure, as well as moving away from the screens, all of that, and to make it a habit.
Yeah. And a lot of it is just building in these little habitual practices. I think that's probably 95% of my job, outside of having this wonderful one-size-cures-all program that I would love to have for people. It's a lot more about addressing those very small, kind of intricate behaviors. So looking at ways they can get more physical activity. We actually have quite a huge amount of people that are vitamin D deficient, which is very interesting, just not getting enough of that sunlight. So trying to get them to get some early morning sunlight, trying to get those little behaviors in is very important. Yeah, try not to get too tied to the screen throughout the day. When we look at kind of our data that we've gathered from our best approximations of hunter-gatherer tribes and those still living quite primitively, we find them moving frequently throughout the day. And around about 15,000 steps, which is quite a lot. Generally find the average Australian is around 6,000 to 7,000, so we're about halfway there. But a lot of people I know that work in offices or have jobs that are quite focused on the computer or the phone, sometimes it's quite low. It's 3,000, it's 4,000, which is quite a huge metric off. And we know, again, going into that kind of all-cause mortality data, that getting someone up to around 7,200 steps is just a dramatic improvement in their health and their life. And it's quite accessible for everyone. It's free. It's easy. You don't need a gym membership, but it can be one of the most profound and healthy things you can do.
Fabulous.
Have you heard the 10,000 steps one?
Yes.
Do you know where that came from?
No.
A Japanese company trying to sell pedometers.
Oh,
Fair enough.
And the 10,000 steps was just a really nice, neat number. So they just went for 10,000 as the goal, and it would count down from 10,000. So you were trying to achieve them, but there's actually no place in the literature that suggests 10,000 is actually ideal. It's just become a very good marketing, very good advertising, because almost everyone goes with it. But when we look at the research, it's much more about 7,200 or about 12,000, somewhere in that range, which with a few strategies is quite manageable for most people throughout the day. You can usually get them into that 7,000 range.
Yeah.
Well, our time has flown by. We've got a little bit of time left that we might focus a little bit more on you and on your business. You've talked about what you're doing now and what you've done in the past. Are there things business-wise that you would like to achieve, or program-wise that you would like to achieve, that you're working towards, that you're actively working towards?
Actively working towards? Absolutely. Yeah, there are some plans in the future. I kind of work in a smallish space at the moment. It's not too big. It's big enough for one or two people at the moment, which is great, which I really like. As I said, I have come from a strength and conditioning background in the past, so I would like to maybe move into a bit more of a bigger facility at one point. But to be honest, they would have the one little baby. I work 5 meters across the lawn from her now, so she's at home and I'm just here, which I absolutely love. And then we're going to start trying for baby number 2 very soon. So a lot of my focus, I went into almost what this is a very fitness term, but a maintenance phase with the business for a little bit around the birth of my first daughter and the second one. So we're in somewhat of a holding pattern, which somehow I just managed to get busier than I've ever been this year, which is always good when it just happens without you trying. So we're kind of focusing on that for now. I think a bigger facility in the future. I'd like to have a little bit more reach to a few more people and be able to work with a few more people throughout the day. And then at the moment, we're offering a very personalized exercise programming on the, I use an app for that. So a lot of that's remotely done, and people training for events or doing different things, or just those looking for lifestyle change. So one of the things we might launch soon is less of an individualized approach. And we might take, hey, this is just fitness for everyone approach. Like, here's a really good program if you're not training particularly for anything, or you don't have an event in mind, so on and so forth. You're just like, hey, I know I need to do some healthy, I need to do some exercise throughout the week. So we would incorporate a lot of those steps we talked about, simple resistance training and stuff like that. So a little bit away from, that very individualized design and a bit more general popular fitness. So.
So it sounds like, because my next question was going to be, how do you improve the offering to people when so much of what you do now is based on you and your involvement and your programs? How do you duplicate yourself, or how do you duplicate the level of service and involvement that you give?
Yes, it's been a question that's arisen before. It's like, how is this scalable? How do you scale this? And I'm like, I'm not actually sure at the moment. Because a lot of it is based around, myself and that kind of thing. But I think, like we talked about before, a bigger facility. So being able to just get some people in. I've done a few mentorships in the past with younger fitness professionals. I'd like to get back to that a little bit more. That gives you, I think, a unique opportunity to influence them. And then obviously they influence a lot of other people. So within a bigger facility, there'd be more chance, to interact with those coaches and kind of work with them through there. And then, yes, I think some more just generalized, accessible programs with people that say, hey, I'm really trying to win this race, or I'm trying to train for this event necessarily, but they're just like, I just need to do something. I think that'll be a good little opportunity to reach more people. So
fabulous.
Sorry, before you wrap up, I just want to say one more thing, particularly because of our international listeners. I just want to point out that you mentioned that you live in Atherton. Just want to say Atherton is a beautiful part of the world, and it's in far north Queensland, for those who don't know.
Absolutely. It's a lovely place. Come visit it. You can come to the gym and work out and see it for yourself.
Well, Aaron, thank you so much for your time. I know that you've made special time to fit us in with all of these other things that you're doing. It has been very educational for me, and for Fulyana, it's been inspirational, let's say.
Very much.
That's awesome. Hopefully we've made it seem a little less daunting and a little more accessible. That's usually the way I like to go.
I think that's very much the case, is that people can see that it is achievable, that it's not needing to be in any particular pattern or membership or program or any of those things. And I think that we'll put your details onto the website so that when you start to develop these other more generalist programs, people can come back and they can find them easily.
Absolutely. And we're always working with people that are just looking to improve their health. So if anyone is and they want to reach on out, that is kind of exactly what we do. So love to hear from anyone that's looking for it. But I think as an industry, we need to do a better job of making it accessible, making it seem less daunting. I think we've spent too long, I think, selling niches and trying to like make it seem like it's really hard, or we have the super special secret, which no one really does. So my goal generally when I talk about it is to, make it seem accessible and possible for everyone, because it really is.
And it's little steps. They don't need to do a whole lot. It's not a complete change of lifestyle. It's just
the little steps usually are much more sustainable. If you can take little ones and then stack those days on top of each other with that little habit, and then find other ways to build little habits on top of that, that'll take you a long way. So
I think there's been a lot of good takeaways for people today. So thank you for your time and for sharing of your expertise. We wish you well. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Of course, I will. I appreciate it.
If only the sun was shining, I would go out, but it's raining.
Not today,
Not today, that's all right. Tomorrow, maybe.
There is our conversation with Aaron Dozier. I encourage you to listen to the first two parts as well to get a complete picture of what you can be doing, as we talked about, those little steps that you can take that are going to improve your health so that you can work better. For now, I'm Kim Bailey, she's Fulyana Osborne, and this is Inside Exec.